At the family dinner, my 8-year-old granddaughter threw food at my face and called me ugly and stupid in French. Thinking I couldn't understand, my son just laughed along, telling me to learn from classy grandmothers abroad. What they didn't know was that I'd lived in Paris for years and understood every cruel word. When I finally responded in perfect French, the shock on their faces was priceless, and I am wondering, where would this happen in your world? Tell me your city or country in the comments. Subscribe for more. So here is what happened. After spending more than 10 years in Paris, my son Patrick and his wife Olivia came back home unexpectedly. At the dinner table, they talked with my granddaughter Rosalind in French, their voices carrying that special closeness of shared secrets. Rosalind spoke loudly in French, her young voice cutting through the air like a knife. "Papa, this old woman is ugly and stupid. She embarrasses me so much." Patrick laughed in response, his tone casual and dismissive. "There is nothing we can do about it. Country people are like that." I sat there pretending I couldn't understand their words, feeling like a stranger in my own home. With an awkward smile, I reached across the table to put a chicken wing on my granddaughter's plate, hoping to fix whatever was wrong between us. Without warning, Rosalind threw the chicken wing right at my face. The sauce splattered across my cheek as she said with shocking hatred, "That is disgusting. It is all your fault that Grandpa and Grandma Fiona can't come home." I sat frozen, my mind struggling to understand her words. My husband Daniel had died decades ago, or so I thought. Who was this Grandma Fiona she was talking about? "Rosalind, how could you treat your grandmother this way?" I managed to ask, my voice shaking with confusion and hurt. I fumbled with my napkin, desperately trying to clean the sauce from my face while Rosalind burst into laughter. She repeated something in French, the word idiot ringing clear despite the foreign language. My face burned with shame and confusion. "Rosalind, haven't I told you before? Please speak English at home. Grandmother can't understand other languages." Rosalind rolled her eyes dramatically and turned to Patrick with an exaggerated complaint. "Daddy, Grandma is so stupid. I don't want to sit next to her anymore." During this whole thing, both Patrick and Olivia stayed glued to their phones, seeming not to notice their daughter's terrible behavior. My patience finally broke, and I gently tapped the back of Rosalind's head. "Why are your manners?" I felt anger rising in my chest like a wave. "How can you not mention that she was rude to me first?" Olivia shrugged dismissively. "So what if she threw something at you? It is not like you are seriously hurt. Besides, looking at Rosalind's behavior, you must have treated her badly before. That is why the child doesn't like you." The words hit me like a punch. I turned to Patrick, hoping for some support, but he didn't even look up as he spoke. "Mom, please stop making a scene. Look at elderly ladies abroad, now they have real class. No wonder Rosalind finds you embarrassing." With her father's support, Rosalind became even bolder. "It is all your fault. You are dirty and smelly, and you are taking up the house so Grandpa and Grandma Fiona can't come home." I stared at her in confusion. "Your grandfather died decades ago. Who is this Grandma Fiona you keep talking about?" Rosalind jumped onto her chair, spit flying as she shouted, "You are the one who is dead. My grandpa is alive and well. He is tall and handsome and wears an expensive watch. Grandma Fiona smells lovely, not like you with your sour stench. You are disgusting." Several minutes passed before the full weight of her words sank in. The room seemed to spin around me as understanding dawned. "Are you all hiding something from me? Your father isn't dead at all, and he has been having an affair." Olivia frowned with apparent irritation. "Mom, what are you talking about? They're soulmates, spiritual companions. How can you compare that to a mere affair?" My head began to pound as rage coursed through my veins. If this isn't an affair, then what is it? He ran off with his mistress and had a grand time while I held this family together alone for more than 40 years. I worked myself to the bone to put my son through college, to pay for his wedding, and then I raised your daughter while you were away. Where is your father now? Who is this Grandma Fiona? You've all known about this, haven't you? Mom. Patrick slammed his phone down on the table with such force that the dishes rattled. When he looked at me, his eyes held no warmth, only cold disappointment. His voice dripped with disdain. Mom, after all these years, you are still the same crude, vulgar woman you always were. You make a mountain out of every molehill. No wonder Dad preferred to fake his own death rather than stay with you. My world tilted on its axis. The words echoed in my head like a death knell. Moments later, Patrick warmly welcomed a man and woman to the 2 remaining seats at our table. I looked up to see a sight that defied all logic and reason. After more than 30 years, Daniel Evans appeared before me without a single gray hair. His locks were jet black and lustrous, his suit impeccably tailored, carried himself with the air of a successful businessman who had conquered the world. The woman beside him looked impossibly youthful for her age, with barely a wrinkle around her eyes. She wore an elegant camel coat, her hair styled in a sophisticated updo. When she moved her hand, a diamond bracelet caught the light and sparkled brilliantly. I recognized her immediately. Fiona had been my neighbor all those years ago. Rosalind immediately rushed to them, calling them Grandpa and Grandma with such sweetness that it made my stomach turn. She practically glued herself to their sides while they beamed with pleasure. Daniel laughed heartily at his granddaughter's affection, while Olivia linked arms with Fiona like old friends catching up. They all took their seats while I remained standing, feeling like an unwelcome stranger at my own table. Daniel glanced at me with barely concealed annoyance. If you can't sit still, go ask the waiter to bring us a couple more dishes. I found my voice at last. Don't you have anything you'd like to explain to me? Daniel's impatience was palpable. Explain what? We're finally having a family dinner together, and you are standing there with that sour expression. At your age, you should stop looking for trouble. Nobody wants to indulge your dramatics. Rosalind deliberately spilled a bowl of soup onto my chair, then pointed triumphantly at Fiona. Why don't you leave already, can't you see? This is my real grandmother. Not like you. Olivia gazed at her daughter with obvious pride. My daughter is so smart, such good judgment. You must never learn from your other grandmother, and let yourself go like that. Rosalind lifted her chin haughtily. I don't want to call that old woman Grandma anymore. I want Grandma Fiona to be my real grandmother. She is beautiful and well-dressed and rich. That old woman won't even let me have snacks. What a cheapskate. Fiona produced an elegant little dress from her bag. Rosalind is such a good girl. This is for you. It is a French designer brand. Laughter filled the table as Patrick gave me a meaningful look. Come on, Mom, we're having a family dinner here. Don't spoil the mood. I stared down at my worn clothing, feeling as though someone had carved a piece right out of my heart. Family dinner spoil the mood? You and your father's mistress are the real family here. What does any of this have to do with me? Something inside me snapped. I lunged forward and overturned the entire table in one swift motion. Plates crashed to the floor in a symphony of destruction. Food scattered everywhere, and fragments flew in all directions. Fiona let out a sharp cry while Daniel instinctively pulled her into his protective embrace. Patrick's clothes were splattered with grease and sauce. He shouted in fury. Mom, what on earth are you trying to accomplish? You are incompetent and full of nasty habits. If I'd known better, I never would have left Rosalind in your care. You've corrupted the child. You are not worth 1/1000th of what Dad is. I honestly don't know how he ever brought himself to marry someone like you. I took a deep breath, feeling strangely calm in the eye of the storm. You are absolutely right. I won't be taking care of Rosalind anymore. Let her generous grandfather and grandmother handle that responsibility. I walked out of the room and pointed directly at Daniel. Today's bill comes to $387. Let him pay for it. Daniel's face went rigid, and he quickly turned away, pretending he hadn't heard a word. I found myself sitting on a bench in the community park, staring up at the vast sky as tears rolled down my cheeks without my permission. Abigail, whatever is the matter? Mrs. Johnson, a neighbor who had always been kind to me, approached with concern written across her features. She patted my back gently. Oh dear, we're both in our 60s and 70s. Don't lose hope over whatever this is. Tell me what is troubling you, and we'll figure it out together. I wiped away my tears, wondering where to even begin this tangled story. Daniel and I had never shared a deep romantic love. When we met, he was nearly 30 and still unmarried, which worried his family greatly. They searched desperately for a suitable bride while I remained unmarried myself due to hearing loss in my left ear from a childhood fever. Few men in our small town were interested in someone with my condition. When our parents decided we were well matched, Daniel and I found ourselves married almost by accident. Our relationship lacked passion, but after Patrick's birth, we managed to maintain a respectful, quiet existence together. That peace shattered when Fiona's husband died, leaving her a widow. Fiona lived next door to us, and we had only been nodding acquaintances before her tragedy. Daniel had occasionally helped her with household repairs when her husband was alive. After her husband's sudden heart attack, Fiona's visits became increasingly frequent and suspiciously coincidental. Today, her water pipes were leaking. Tomorrow, mice had invaded her kitchen, and the day after that, she had twisted her ankle and needed assistance. Out of sympathy for her recent loss, I tried to hold my tongue and look the other way. Fiona grew bolder with each passing day one afternoon. I returned from picking up Patrick at school to see Daniel's Chevrolet pickup truck in Fiona's driveway. She sat in the passenger seat, and they were laughing together like old friends. Rage consumed me. I marched over and confronted them both. When I demanded an explanation, Daniel insisted their relationship was purely platonic friendship. Our argument that night was fierce and bitter. I considered divorce several times, but each time Patrick would wrap his small arms around me and beg me not to leave. My resolve always crumbled in the face of his tears. I should have trusted my instincts and left then. Soon after, I discovered money missing from Patrick's college fund. Daniel had been taking our son's future to finance his dates with Fiona. Movie tickets, restaurant dinners, gifts. I was so furious that I left scratch marks on Daniel's face. Half the neighborhood heard our screaming match that night. The next day, Daniel claimed he had to drive a long-distance trucking route. According to his cousin, there was an accident during the trip, and Daniel never came home. When I heard the news, everything went black and I collapsed. By the time I regained consciousness, Daniel's cousin informed me that cremation had already taken place. Within days of Daniel's supposed death, Fiona quietly moved to another state. I had no choice but to struggle on alone with Patrick. We moved from city to city as I searched for work to support us. I spent more than 10 years working multiple jobs, saving every penny for Patrick's college education and helping him buy his first house. Just when I thought I could finally rest, he sold that house immediately after his wedding, left his infant daughter Rosalind in my care, and used the money to pursue his career in France. Now, I understood that he had never intended to build a career there. He had rushed off to France to reunite with his supposedly dead father. I let out a long sigh as Mrs. Johnson prepared to respond, but our conversation was interrupted by a neighbor running toward us in obvious distress. "Abigail, something terrible has happened. Your house has been broken into. I saw several people going inside and carrying in luggage. When I returned home, I found Olivia chatting pleasantly with Fiona, while Daniel sat in my living room reading the Wall Street Journal as though he owned the place." Daniel looked at me with obvious irritation and launched into a lecture. "Look what time it is. All you do is wander around outside instead of taking care of your responsibilities. You haven't even started dinner. This is completely unacceptable." The urge to strike him was overwhelming, but I was genuinely hungry, so I went into the kitchen to prepare some pasta for myself. When I emerged from the kitchen with a fork, I found Daniel and Fiona comfortably seated at my dining table, already eating my food. Patrick and Olivia complained loudly. "Mom, where is ours? You didn't make nearly enough. How stingy can you be?" Daniel chewed thoughtfully and offered his critique. "Your mother has always been selfish. She is still the same small-town woman she always was. No class whatsoever," he continued with obvious relish. "When I was in Paris, I dined on foie gras and the finest cuisine. Your mother couldn't even compare to the waitresses there. They had such elegant speech and manners. As Daniel warmed to his subject, I calmly walked over and upended my entire bowl of pasta directly onto his face. Fiona shrieked while Daniel roared with outrage. Pasta sauce dripping from his hair. "Abigail, you are completely insane. You have no breeding whatsoever." I laughed bitterly. "I am crazy. I have no class." I grabbed the Wall Street Journal from the coffee table and began tearing it into pieces, slapping each page against his sauce-covered face. "You have such fine breeding. That is why you had an affair. You are so cultured. That is why you abandoned your wife and son to live it up in France while your child had fevers and needed his father. You are such a gentleman. That is why you faked your own death and left me to serve your entire family while you played house with your mistress." I hurled the shredded newspaper at Daniel's head with all my strength, still pretending to be some sophisticated businessman. "What a joke. If France is so wonderful, why did you bother coming back? Pack up and get out of here." Daniel's face cycled through various shades of red and white while Fiona stepped forward with her practiced wounded expression. "Abigail, please listen to me." I delivered a sharp slap across her cheek, and her eyes immediately welled with crocodile tears. "You get out too. How dare you claim to have good taste when no woman with real class would willingly become a mistress, much less flaunt her affair in front of the legal wife?" Patrick and Olivia could no longer remain silent. "Mom, you are being completely unreasonable. Why do you insist on making yourself miserable? All of you get out of my house." I grabbed whatever I could reach and hurled it at them. Amid the chorus of shrieks and complaints, the house became a battlefield, until finally, no one dared speak. "Grandma, please don't be angry anymore. I am frightened." Seeing my granddaughter cowering in the corner with terror written across her small face, my heart clenched with pain. This was the child I had raised for 12 years. I had fed her bottles and changed her diapers, taught her to read and write, watched her grow from an infant into a young girl. Rosalind had never been separated from me since the day she was born. My resolve wavered, and I moved quickly toward her, wanting to comfort and hold her. But as I approached, I suddenly pitched forward violently, my head striking the doorframe with tremendous force. Stars exploded behind my eyes as pain shot through my skull. Rosalind laughed with pure delight and threw her doll at me for good measure. She announced proudly, "Serves you right. That is what you get for being mean to Grandpa and Grandma Fiona." The others praised Rosalind for her clever intervention, while Daniel brazenly escorted Fiona into my master bedroom. They threw all my belongings out into the hallway. Fiona stepped on me deliberately as she passed, her face glowing with victory. Patrick shook his head with mock sadness. "Mom, I can't help you this time. You brought this all on yourself. Even a child can see how unreasonable you are being." He led Olivia to their room, and not a single person offered to help me up from the floor. Rosalind looked down at me with obvious contempt. "Hurry up and get out, you old bag. I am sick of looking at you." I remained motionless on the floor. My granddaughter smiled coldly. "Can't you understand simple English? I don't need a useless grandmother like you." In Rosalind's expression, I saw the same dismissive arrogance that Daniel had always shown me. After Rosalind skipped off to her room, I slowly pulled myself up, gathered all my belongings, took my bank cards, and left that house forever in the dead of night. Since they clearly didn't need me, I would let this elite family enjoy their precious reunion without interference. I moved into a luxury apartment and immediately listed the house for sale online. I had purchased that house with my life savings specifically because it was in an excellent school district for Rosalind's education. Even with a reduced asking price, buyers contacted me within 48 hours. I completed all the paperwork as quickly as possible. When the money hit my account and the new owners arrived to take possession, Patrick was speechless with shock. "The house is sold. When did this happen?" I had no idea. Mom never mentioned anything about selling. The buyer was a military veteran with no patience for nonsense. He physically removed them from the property without ceremony. "What is all this about your mom and my mom? I paid good money for this house, and now it belongs to me. Pack your things and get out immediately." Daniel tried to put on airs. "Listen here, friend. This isn't how civilized people behave. When I was in Paris, people there had real culture. And shut your mouth, you pathetic old fool. Stop pretending to be some kind of European sophisticate. If you are so cultured, why don't you pay me back my money?" The veteran and his friends cursed them out thoroughly as they forced the entire group to leave. Daniel looked ready to suffer another heart attack from sheer indignation. Shortly afterward, I received a phone call from Patrick. "Mom, did you sell the house behind our backs?" "Yes, I did. I should have known. You are still the same selfish person you always were. Where are we supposed to live now? How is Rosalind going to continue school? You are constantly embarrassing me." "Patrick, you are the selfish one here." I spoke slowly and clearly. "When you were 10 years old, you contracted pneumonia so severe that the hospital advised me to prepare for the worst. I carried you on my back for miles through the countryside to find someone who could save your life. When you went to college and worried about your roommates looking down on you, I worked in restaurant kitchens washing dishes. My monthly salary was $2,000 and I gave you $1,500 for living expenses. And when you got married, I sold my childhood home and scraped together every penny I could find to give you. Stop talking about things I don't want to hear. It is not like I forced you to do any of that. You are uneducated and poor. Isn't it natural that you should do everything possible to support me? If I were Dad, I would have dumped you years ago. You are always complaining and making scenes. What gives you the right to complain?" I continued my needlework calmly. "I see from Dad. No other man would even look." Patrick snorted with derision. "You'll regret this eventually." Then he hung up on me. I squinted in the comfortable afternoon sunlight. For years I had been so busy picking up Rosalind from school and rushing home to prepare meals that I had forgotten how wonderful it felt to simply sit in the sunshine. Who would end up regretting their choices remained to be seen. I discovered that Fiona had started teaching etiquette classes for middle-aged and elderly women, drawing on her supposed experience of refined living in France. She charged $100 per session to teach students how to cultivate grace and sophistication. I enrolled in her class and arrived early to chat with the other students before the lesson began. "Is your instructor really named Fiona?" I asked casually. "Oh yes, she has such wonderful poise and dresses so stylishly," one woman replied admiringly. I smiled mysteriously. "Would you like to hear the story about her and my husband?" The women immediately gathered around me with eager anticipation. "Let me ask you something. If you burned your arm, what would you do?" "Roll up my sleeve and apply ointment, of course. What else would anyone do?" "Wrong. According to Fiona's method, you should expose half your shoulder, cry pitifully, and go find your neighbor's husband. Then you should speak in a sweet, helpless voice. 'Daniel, I am hurt, and it hurts so much. Please rub it better for me.'" The women's mouths fell open in perfect circles of shock. "Oh, and when Fiona asked my husband to help fix her plumbing, they disappeared for 3 hours. When I went to check on them," I paused dramatically while one of the women pressed a handful of nuts into my palm. "Please continue. Tell us everything." Fiona had stripped down to nothing but a tank top and positioned herself directly on my husband's lap. When I caught them, she claimed she had accidentally fallen and accused me of having a dirty mind and making false accusations. Just as I finished speaking, Fiona entered the classroom. "Today we're going to learn about elegant posture and graceful movement. How should a woman walk to be more alluring? What behaviors make a woman irresistibly charming? A lady must always wear high heels and stockings. In France, women understand that." One of the students interrupted skeptically. "What kind of nonsense are you teaching? We're all in our 50s and 60s. Do you expect us to wear high heels? What if we fall and break our bones?" A flash of contempt crossed Fiona's features. "Madam, I lived in France for decades. I believe I am more qualified than you two." "So what if you lived in France? Did France teach you how to seduce your neighbor's husband, how to shamelessly become a mistress, how to live off men as a parasite? Even when the legal wife confronted you, you still had the nerve to show off." Fiona's face turned crimson with humiliation. "We want our money back." This ridiculous etiquette class taught by an old mistress, who does she think she is, lecturing us about morality. "I'd rather burn my money than give it to you." Dozens of outraged women surrounded Fiona, their angry voices filling the air. Someone pulled out a phone. "I am posting about you on social media, so everyone can see what kind of person you really are." Fiona found herself trapped in a corner, her hair disheveled and makeup smeared. Someone examined her designer handbag. "Look here, everyone. I thought she was some kind of wealthy socialite, but it is all counterfeit." Fiona's humiliation was complete. She looked at me with pure hatred. "Abigail, are you satisfied now?" I shook my head with a smile. This is just the beginning. Years ago, when Daniel successfully faked his death and created false documentation, several of his cousins and relatives had provided crucial assistance. Many of these people held positions in government agencies. I gathered evidence and filed complaints against every single one of them. Daniel's relatives faced disciplinary action and consequences for their roles in the fraud. They called Daniel to unleash their fury, screaming at him over the phone. Daniel, filled with rage and having nowhere to direct it, returned to the neighborhood only to find a crowd of people gathered under the trees near the entrance. "Well, look who is back, the old cheater. Why aren't you out somewhere sweet, talking your ancient mistress today?" Fiona had been so thoroughly humiliated by the community that she no longer dared to show her face in public. Daniel's face went pale, but he still tried to maintain his arrogant facade. "Ignorant country bumpkins! I can't be bothered arguing with people like you." An elderly man responded with mock humility. "Oh, we wouldn't dare argue with someone like you. After spending so much time in France with your mistress, who knows what diseases you might have picked up? Normal people would run the other way. You!" Daniel was so enraged that he actually pushed the elderly gentleman. This action ignited a powder keg of community outrage. Dozens of senior citizens immediately surrounded Daniel from all sides. Some grabbed his collar, others stepped on his expensive shoes. Elderly men struck him with their walking canes, while women pelted him with rotten eggs and delivered sharp slaps across his face. Daniel found himself completely overwhelmed, covering his head and crying out in pain. When police arrived to investigate the disturbance, the same elderly people who had been so vigorous in their attack suddenly became frail and helpless. They complained of heart conditions, high blood pressure, depression, and one woman even produced official documentation of her psychiatric diagnosis. Since they were all in their 60s and 70s, and since mob justice is difficult to prosecute, the police simply offered some words of advice and left the scene. Daniel fled home with his hands covering his bruised face, pouring out his troubles to Patrick. Patrick immediately called me. "Mom, haven't you caused enough trouble? This has gone far enough. What is the point of all this chaos?" I was enjoying afternoon tea with my elderly friends, responding cheerfully. "Not nearly enough trouble yet. As I told you before, this is just the beginning." Soon after Patrick lost his job, his multinational corporation placed great emphasis on employee character and moral standards. I didn't do anything particularly dramatic. I simply sat outside his office building with a protest sign during busy hours, crying loudly for everyone to see. Whenever people emerged from the building, I would sob and tell them how Patrick despised his own mother, how he supported his father's mistress and defended a cheating father, and how he had abandoned his young daughter to pursue selfish pleasures in France. I even gave an interview to the local Chinese language television station, deliberately eating hot peppers to make myself cry more convincingly while telling my story. I filed my complaint on a Monday morning, and by Wednesday afternoon, Patrick was clearing out his desk. With his mediocre abilities and inflated ego, Patrick considered most companies beneath him. Consequently, he found himself completely unemployed. This prompted Patrick's third attempt to contact me. His voice carried deep exhaustion. "Mom, I was wrong. Please, come back. Rosalind needs someone to drive her to and from school, and she is constantly demanding things we can't afford. There is no one to cook meals or take out the garbage or do the laundry. Olivia has to work, and I can't even get a hot meal. I am at my wit's end. I raised an eyebrow. He wasn't sorry for his behavior. He simply missed having a dedicated, unpaid servant. I spoke slowly. That won't be possible. I am leaving for a vacation trip tomorrow. Patrick's voice rose to a shout. Everything here is falling apart, and you are thinking about vacation. Mom, you are incredibly selfish, I replied calmly. Only you and your family are allowed to live off my labor and enjoy life while I am supposed to sacrifice everything, Patrick. You truly are your father's son, equally disgusting and entitled. Get lost. I boarded a flight to Europe and spent 2 glorious weeks traveling with friends my own age. For the first time, I experienced the kind of high culture that Daniel had always bragged about. It was quite enjoyable indeed. When I returned to my apartment, I found Rosalind standing outside my door with her arms crossed defiantly. My mom says I have to stay with you for a few days. My first instinct was to tell her to go home immediately. However, my curiosity got the better of me, and I unlocked the door. After several months apart, Rosalind looked thin and dark from too much sun. Her previously long hair had been cut into a short bob, and the small diamond earrings and silver bracelet I had given her were nowhere to be seen. As I prepared a simple meal, I asked, "Why did your mother send you here? My mom is pregnant, and there is nobody to take care of me." Rosalind rummaged through my cabinets and drawers, muttering complaints. "Where are the chips? I want chips. I am starving. There are no chips here. Cheapskate, I want chips. I want chips. If you don't give me chips, I won't eat anything else." I set down my knife and spoke each word clearly. "There are no chips. If you continue making a mess of my things, you can leave right now." My stern expression startled Rosalind into silence, and she sulked on the sofa without another word. I prepared scrambled eggs, but Rosalind immediately began another tantrum. "I don't want this. I want steak and lobster and crab. Mean Grandma, I hate you so much." I raised my hand and delivered a sharp slap across her face. Rosalind stared at me in absolute shock. In the 13 years I had raised her, I had never spoken harshly to her, let alone raised a hand to discipline her. I didn't bother looking at her again as I sat down to eat my own meal. "You might as well eat something while you can. Things are only going to get worse for you when you go back home." "I don't believe you. My mom loves me the most. I am only staying here temporarily." I smiled grimly. "Home, you haven't had a real home since your mother found out she is carrying a boy. If she truly loved you, why would she have another child to compete for resources and attention? Why are your jeans worn through at the knees? Why did she cancel your piano lessons? Why couldn't I find a single stuffed animal in your suitcase? I bought you dozens of them over the years, and you used to carry them everywhere. Where did they all go?" I had never denied Rosalind anything she wanted. She loved beautiful clothes and refused to wear anything that showed the slightest sign of wear, so her closet was always filled with the latest fashions. When she envied a classmate's piano skills, I enrolled her in expensive private lessons with the best instructors available. In return, I received nothing but contempt and insults from an ungrateful child. Rosalind's lips began to tremble. She whispered, "Mom gave away all my toys," she said. "Piano lessons are useless for girls," and sent the teacher away. I nodded knowingly. "Just wait and see. This is only the beginning. After your brother is born, all your parents' love, attention, and resources will go to him. As for you, I predict that within 2 years you'll be working part-time jobs to help save money for your brother's college education." "No, I won't let that happen." Rosalind screamed in terror and threw herself at me. "Grandma, I don't want to quit school." I glanced at her coldly. "First, I am not your grandmother. Your sophisticated and elegant real grandmother is at home with your grandfather. Second, since you are so close to your grandparents, why don't you ask them for help? They don't care about me at all." That old woman stole my earrings and bracelet, and she told Grandpa to hit me. My parents ignore me too. I hate all of them. I don't want a baby brother. I leaned closer and whispered, You don't have to let this brother be born. He is still very small and fragile. One little push, and he'll be gone. Then you'll still be your parents' beloved only child." Rosalind's eyes lit up with a frightening intensity. I finished my eggs and placed the dish in the sink. After Patrick and Olivia moved to France, I had suggested that they should contribute to Rosalind's care since raising a child alone was becoming difficult for me. Olivia had exploded with rage, screaming at me for 40 minutes over the phone. She claimed she had never wanted children in the first place and only had a baby because I kept pressuring them. She said she hated children more than anything else in the world, and demanded to know why I, as the grandmother, wouldn't take full responsibility for raising my own granddaughter. The truth was that Patrick had wanted a son, and Olivia had been easily influenced by his desires. When Rosalind turned out to be a girl, they were disappointed and used that as an excuse to abandon their responsibilities, leaving me to raise their child. Since Olivia claimed to hate children and wanted to remain childless, I decided to help make that dream come true. This pregnancy could simply end before it began. Rosalind stayed with me for 10 days, during which I granted her every wish and desire. When she returned home, the contrast with her parents' indifference made her resentment burn even brighter. 3 days later, I learned that Rosalind had accidentally pushed Olivia down a flight of stairs. Olivia lost the baby and remained unconscious in the hospital. Daniel contacted me personally with a conciliatory tone. "Abigail, I know you are hurting because you feel betrayed by my relationship with another woman. That is all in the past now. If you come back, I am willing to end things with Fiona and start fresh with you." I happened to be enjoying karaoke with my friends when he called, so I hung up on his annoying chatter without a second thought. That evening, Daniel launched into a series of phone calls. "Abigail, I've already apologized to you personally. What more do you want? There is a limit to how much drama anyone should tolerate. Your daughter-in-law is lying unconscious in the hospital, and you haven't even visited once. What kind of mother-in-law behaves this way?" I was enjoying hot pot with friends and responded with obvious irritation. "What daughter-in-law? Olivia's mother-in-law is your mistress Fiona. This has nothing to do with me. She fawns over Fiona like a devoted puppy while treating me with constant disrespect. Now that she needs someone to take care of her, suddenly she remembers I exist. The nerve of your family is truly astounding. How can you be so heartless? I may have made some small mistakes in the past, but surely you are not going to hold grudges forever. The beef is perfectly cooked now. Try some. Oh, this fresh sliced meat is incredible. Let's add the tripe too. Hello, Abigail, can you hear me? I haven't slept in 3 days and nights." I ended the call and enjoyed the peace that followed, along with my delicious hot pot dinner. As I mentioned before, Daniel and I had never shared deep emotional bonds. We were simply partners trying to make the best of life together during a different era. When he began his affair with Fiona, I felt hurt and disappointed, but it wasn't the earth-shattering betrayal that might destroy other marriages. My concerns were much more practical. What to cook for dinner tomorrow, whether the roses in my garden were thriving, how much money I had saved for Patrick's education, and the health of my elderly parents. As long as Daniel contributed financially to our household and didn't expose me to diseases, I honestly didn't care whether he was involved with Fiona, Jessica, Amanda, or any other woman after all. His reputation was the one being destroyed, not mine. I had never expected Daniel to suddenly develop a conscience, fall to his knees, and beg for my forgiveness. When men stray once, they typically stray repeatedly. One woman today, another tomorrow. Why would I want to hold on to such a worthless person? What I truly hated about Daniel wasn't the infidelity itself, but his selfishness, cowardice, arrogance, and hypocrisy. He avoided all responsibility and showed no integrity whatsoever. He couldn't even be bothered to treat me with basic human respect. While I struggled to hold our family together, he was living a carefree life on the other side of the world with his mistress. Seeing him suffer now brought me tremendous satisfaction, but even greater satisfaction was yet to come. I discovered Rosalind crouched outside my apartment door again, crying her heart out. She rushed into my arms. "Grandma, I am sick. My parents won't get me treatment. My arms hurt, and my legs hurt too. I examined the medical report she handed me. Leukemia. Rosalind sobbed as though her heart was breaking, wiping her nose on my sleeve. Grandma, I don't want to die. Please save me. I promise I'll be good to you when I grow up. Her distress seemed genuine, but I hesitated only briefly before she continued. The doctor told me that for just $50,000, I can have the surgery I need. How remarkably convenient. I happen to have exactly $50,000 in my account. I decided to test her sincerity and gave her only $200. This is all the cash I have with me. I'll go to the bank tomorrow and withdraw the rest for you. Rosalind's face lit up with gratitude. Thank you, Grandma. You are the best grandmother in the whole world. In that moment, I clearly saw her lips curl into a satisfied smile, and her eyes sparkled with barely concealed triumph. After she left, I immediately asked Mrs. Johnson to investigate whether Rosalind was actually ill. Mrs. Johnson, who loved community gossip even more than I did, returned with interesting information. Absolutely not. Just an hour ago, I saw Rosalind laughing and talking with your son and daughter-in-law. I deliberately walked closer and overheard your son saying how easy you are to fool, how incredibly stupid you are, and that you can't even recognize a doctored photo when you see one. What is going on here? Even though I had suspected their deception, hearing the confirmation still felt like a knife to the heart. My own granddaughter, my own son and daughter-in-law, the people who should have been closest to me, were scheming to extract money from me while mocking my intelligence and treating me with utter contempt. I blocked all their phone numbers and disappeared from their lives completely. 2 weeks later, when they couldn't reach me, they came to my apartment. The neighbors told them I had left for another extended vacation. Patrick lost his temper immediately. He posted a lengthy rant in our neighborhood's social media group, publicly attacking my character. Fellow neighbors, I need you all to be the judge of whether this is right or wrong. My daughter is seriously ill. My wife suffered a miscarriage. My father is sick with worry and stress, and my mother is off somewhere enjoying herself on vacation, dining and partying without a care in the world. Have any of you ever encountered such a selfish, heartless woman? She doesn't deserve to be called a mother. She has completely lost her humanity. The community residents immediately responded with brutal honesty. Who are you exactly? I've lived here for 15 years and I've never seen Abigail's son or daughter-in-law visit even once. She has been raising that granddaughter completely alone. I actually assumed you were both dead until now. Where did you two suddenly appear from? This is hilarious. You are calling someone else selfish when that word could have been invented specifically for you. You dumped your baby on your mother and ran off to chase your dreams. Now you show up years later expecting to be treated like family while criticizing everything she does. And let's talk about how good your father is. His cheating scandal is legendary throughout this entire community. Listen, friend, I am not trying to start trouble, but I have to ask, why did you have a child and then refuse to raise it? Couldn't afford contraception, or did someone cheat on you? Also, and I am really not trying to cause problems, you spent 15 years in France and apparently accomplished absolutely nothing. France is supposed to be so wonderful. Why did you bother coming back finally? And I promise I am not trying to be difficult. My friend looked into your background and found out you lost all your money gambling on stocks in France and were actually imprisoned for drunk driving. I don't mean anything by this, but if you are so successful, why doesn't your family employ a driver? Hello, are you still there? Can you see my messages? Could you please respond? I sent you a friend request. I am not trying to cause trouble. I just want to have a friendly conversation. What? Why did you delete me? There really are too many bad people in this world. Patrick couldn't handle the public humiliation and quickly left the group. Eventually, I settled permanently in California, far from all their drama and chaos. I never heard from them again. I used the money from selling the house to open a specialized care facility for elderly residents, drawing on my years of experience caring for seniors. The facility quickly earned an excellent reputation throughout the local community. I no longer depended on anyone else for my security or happiness, Through my own hard work and determination, I had built a life that truly belonged to me. Every day, I watched elderly people who had been abandoned by their own children rediscover dignity and joy in my facility. I knew then that I had finally become the person I was always meant to be. That is our story for today. We hope you enjoyed this incredible tale. Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Subscribe for more captivating stories like this, and don't forget to like and share this video. Thank you for being here with us. See you next time.